Hey class, I hope you had a first good week of school, virtual school. And what I wanted to do in this video is I'm going to cover the article that you guys were assigned last week, week one, which was the article by David Brooks called Children Need to Be Back in School Now. So while I was reading, and this is something that I would recommend you doing too, is I highlighted. I used a highlighter built into actually OCC's library portal there's a highlighting feature, and then I also took notes as I used the note feature also from the library site, and kind of plopped them in here as I was reading along. So I picked this article. One, I read the New York Times and I saw this article, and then it kind of stuck out to me for a couple of reasons. One, my wife is a teacher. She teaches in Troy Public Schools in middle school, and obviously I'm a teacher, and so the title itself was kind of striking, and so I thought I would have some good stuff to talk about, if nothing else. So first, your task for your assignment was to find the thesis, the reasons to support the thesis, the evidence used to support those reasons, and then to find the purpose, tone, and intended audience of the author. Now, I'm going to go from the top and kind of move through the article, and hopefully it brings things into a clearer view for you. So in yellow up here, there are people across the country who deny evidence, invent their own facts, and live in their own fantasy land. We saw it in the Republicans who denied the reality of the Biden election victory, and we see it now in teachers unions that are shutting down schools and marring children's lives. That's some pretty intense language that Brooks is using here, but this is his thesis statement, right? He's saying that teachers are denying facts and living in their own fantasy land. And then he has reasons. His reasons are in the form of, in quotes, facts, of how they are living in a fantasy land, or a land where there is no fact, and he is providing those 4 facts for them. And so in blue I highlighted the different reasons, and then in green I have the evidence. So the first reason, or in this case he's calling it a fact, is that remote learning is a disaster, especially for disadvantaged students. And so then if we look through the evidence here, I have all these green paragraphs highlighted, just to be easier for you to look at it that way, I guess. And so he cites Alec McGillis from ProPublica. He looks at a 12-year-old boy that was at the center of the piece. And so if you want to know what he's doing here, this is a little bit of research, right? He's citing an author from ProPublica. He is using a case study of the 12-year-old boy at the center of the piece, who is no longer interested in school because of what has happened. And then he cites a bunch of statistics too. The broader data on school closure is horrendous. Mental health problems have increased. Many children have simply vanished from official oversight. And then this county in Florida is missing 7,000 students. So statistics are usually based on some research, right? And this is data points that Florida is bringing to the table here. And then he looked again at another study that the average student has lost at least a third of a year worth of learning and reading, and 3/4 of a year's worth of learning in math. And then he finally looks at the long-term effects that this is going to have. And so that's a lot of different types of evidence, and generally, like I noted in the last video, research, history, logic, not logic always, but research, statistics, those are all good forms of evidence. But I kind of want to rewind for just a second here, is that like David Brooks has been contributing to the New York Times for a long time, and so. But just because he's been contributing to the New York Times, it doesn't mean that we have to believe. We have to take everything that he says as the God-given truth. And he is, very famous, and he's written many books, and yada yada yada. But that doesn't make me have to believe him. Instead, like, what we're going to do here is we're thinking critically. We are going to hopefully eventually poke some holes in the argument that he's making here, and not that he's completely wrong, but I think he is glossing over some things here. All right, so the next thing, his next little form of evidence or reason is that the second fact is in-person can be done safely with the right precautions. So that's his reasons. That's supporting this thesis where he's saying that teachers are not listening to reason. And then the evidence he uses is, it was unclear last March and April, but now study after study has shown that schools can be safe. A report from the CDC and prevention just attested this fact. The evidence seems clear. And then he gives an anecdote that some private and public schools are operating safely all around the country, and that there isn't any evidence that it's spreading. And then finally, the third reason is that teachers' unions don't seem to have adjusted to the facts. And then for evidence, he cites Washington, Chicago, and some other places where unions are shutting down in-class instruction. And again, he cites how Chicago Public School Union is on the verge of an illegal strike, even though 130 private schools and 2,000 early learning centers have been open safely since the fall. And then he says... and then he cites some of the things that the Chicago district has done to make the classes safer, and then he cites another thing where teachers are setting a percent of positive test rates that they want to achieve before they come back. And why are they doing this? Are they just making this up for no good reason? And that's some of his reasons. And so these are more like examples, and these are things that he's observing happening here, right? And I mean, I guess he's basing this probably on some little bit of research that he's done, but also this is all public information. The fourth fact or reason in this case is that the situation is especially devastating to poor Black and brown students. And he said, and again, he's basing this on some, I mean, it doesn't have like specific figures in the first paragraph. Many affluent kids have fled the public school disaster for private schools as Black and brown kids who live in cities with progressive mayors and powerful unions. And those are the places where in-school learning has been closed down. And so, I mean, I guess this is observation. This is what he's seeing in the newspapers and hearing from major cities, I'm assuming. Again, kind of not hard statistics here by any stretch of the imagination, but the next paragraph, he cites a study by Hartney and Finger that found political partisanship and teacher union strength explain how school boards approach reopening. Another survey conducted last year by Chalk Beat in the Associated Press found that roughly half of white students had access to in-person learning compared with a quarter of Black and Hispanic kids. Again, so he's basing this on a little bit of research. And so that is like, those are the big points of his article, right? He has four reasons, four facts, and then he supports those facts with various types of evidence. And so the other things that you were to look for when you're reading this article is, what is the purpose of this article? So purpose, I mean, there can be more than one. It could be to entertain, to inform, to convince. And so what do you guys think he's doing here? I mean, in my mind, he's trying to inform basically the rest of the country by that, teachers, many teachers at least, are as bad as the people that refuse to believe that Biden won the election. And so he's making that analogy right in the first paragraph. And I would say, I mean, is he trying to? I mean, his title implies that he's trying to convince the rest of the nation that children need to go back to school. And is like this, and I guess we can think of like the evidence that he's supplying here as showing why they need to, since it has been shown that it's safe to go. It's devastating if they don't go back to school, and so forth. And so next, the tone. I mean, he this is a topic that he is, passionate about, and he feels like the students really, really need to get back, and that I would say that, he's concerned and he's angry. All of those things picking up just by the kind of language that he's using. He's based on his analogy and his words anti-intellectualism. And what are some other, like this one, where did it get that threshold as a basis for its negotiating stance? It pulled it out of thin air. They're just making stuff up as they go along here. What else? What are some other examples? Progressive mayors, powerful unions, some more colorful language here. All right, and so the intended audience, and so this is... this one you usually have to do a little bit of legwork here, right? And so David Brooks, generally speaking, if you're reading an op-ed article in the New York Times, most of the contributing authors are liberal. But as you can see in this note right here, the Times is committed to publishing a diversity of letters to the editor. And so New York Times has a few conservative contributors too, Brett Stevens and David Brooks being the two main authors. But I mean, I think Vladimir Putin has also written an article in the op-ed, and there have been a few other notable non-liberal writers here too. And so I could say, like, the intended audience is, he is writing to teachers here, because the teachers union is typically pretty liberal, but he is also comparing those unions to conservatives. And I'm not sure that the language that he's using here is exactly if he's going to get unions to agree with him, but fellow conservatives for sure, maybe like parents across the country, and maybe even those that are on the sides of teachers. He's trying to show those readers that there is another side to this thing. Okay, and so the one other thing I kind of want to talk about here is, what is he not talking about? He's a lot of this is on the shoulders of Chicago Teachers Union. But if you do just even a quick Google search to figure out why they don't want to come back, and I guess I went through this with my wife too, is that Troy schools didn't go back for so long because, first of all, nobody was guiding the plan to come back. There wasn't a threshold that the school district was, or that the Oakland County had set to bring students back. And really, they didn't go back until Oakland County Health Department gave recommendations on what to do to make classrooms safe. And so, that's one thing, is there just hasn't been a lot of guidance from any form of government to get back. And even Gretchen Whitmer had a come back to school plan, but it wasn't vetted by Oakland County, and then Oakland County eventually actually changed, and there was no what do I want to say? And so, Gretchen Whitmer had a plan to come back, but then it didn't have to be followed by anybody. There was no regulation behind it. And so really, Troy didn't, the plan completely changed once Oakland County Health Department identified when it was safe to come back, or how it would be safe to come back. And then finally, a couple of the other reasons that teachers don't want to come back, or the things that they're looking for before coming back is, from what I read, and this is from the USA Today, just the general newspaper, is that the reason that teachers, the thing that is holding teachers from coming back is they want their teachers that have immunocompromised household members, they want teleworking accommodations for them. So just the ability for those teachers that have somebody in their house that is at risk to be able to continue to teach from home. And then, so they don't, I mean, so they're not at a high risk when they're at school and bringing something back that, where that could happen. And additionally, the teachers honestly they just want a public health metric. They want something that will guide school reopening. And so that percent, I think the teachers just threw out there, but it's because there isn't a guide for when it is healthy to come back. And they're also waiting for vaccinations. Here in Michigan, Oakland County teachers at least got vaccines already, their first shot, and some are on their second shot already. And which makes it, I mean, that takes kind of a lot of the pressure off if you know that you're vaccinated and the vaccine is get up to 93% or 92% or whatever it is, depending on when you get. That makes it easier on the teachers, at least as far as psychologically, to come back too. And so, I mean, finally, I guess my last point is that there's not a great answer. This is this is all new territory, and I mean, it's not. I don't think it's that teachers don't want to teach. That's that teachers are scared to teach. I know my wife. She's worried, obviously, before she got the vaccine, and now she's a little bit less worried, honestly. And it's as simple as that. And like that, just having guidance on what to do is helpful. Okay, so I guess that's my spiel. And we're going to continue to do this. This is what I want to do throughout the semester. I want to talk about topics that there's a lot of gray area, and nothing is ever like black and white. And we don't always have to believe people because they have fancy degrees and have a large audience. We can. There's more than one place to find evidence and explanation. And so that's what I want to do here. Is I want to encourage you to think beyond, outside the box, and to ask questions. I mean, that's the biggest thing about critical thinking, is that you just got to ask questions. And so that's what we're going to do going forward. All right. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you have questions again about any of these points that we've covered today, please let me know.